No, you're already.
Call the meeting to order. We're going to start off tonight with the recognition of the Unified Performing Arts students. Don has a few words.
Scariest thing is standing up and speaking in front of people, right? I don't know how you guys do it. Really appreciate you being here tonight. And on behalf of the board, we want to thank you for all the hard work and dedication that goes into that program. I know my son was in all that stuff for many years. It's a lot of work, both parents and staff, support and everybody. And tonight, we're going to give you some certificates as a token of our appreciation of the board. So,
Well, thank you very much, Chairman Stewart and the school board for honoring our students. Many of them, unfortunately, were not able to come tonight because of other commitments, but I will make sure that I get their certificates to them as soon as we can. So we'll start with the one act play. And if I call your name, I'm going to read all of them, but as I call your name, if you guys will come up and make sure you stay up because Mrs. Farrington wants to get a picture of people who are here. So Julia Allen, Victoria Blanchett, Gabby Brackett, Dean Crocco, Presley Davis, Avery Farrington,
Nice.
Olivia Hallett, Aiden Jameson, Blair Mikowski. Sorry.
Oh, no, you can.
Gavin Mikowski, Caitlin Marson, Natalie McEwen, Sean McGibbon, Samantha McGreevy, Nate McLaughlin, Riley Moores, Amelia Morrison. Pedro Nicolo Mir. Abby Sanders, Alyssa Stanley, Ashton Walton, and Tegan York. That's everyone for the Unified Performing Arts One Act. Next, we will do Unified Harmony Junior High Show Choir. Again, if you are here, please come up. Bailey Anisosopoulos, Chevelle Bailey, Eva Blanchett, Blaine Campbell, Natalie Crehan, Olivia DeSantis, Gianna Gurwitch, Andrew Hallett, Vanessa Morrow, All ready for softball, I see. Liam Porter. Noel Shearer. Harlow Tegrowen. Logan Toll. And Benjamin Waite. So the Unified Harmony Junior High Show Choir. And finally, Unified Harmony Show Choir. And Julia Allen, Victoria Blanchett, Ava Campbell, Dean Crocco, Avery Farrington, Janessa Fisk-Smith, Isaac Hakes, Olivia Hallett, Abby Kelly, Connor Kelly, Blair Makowski, Caitlin Marson, Nate McLaughlin, Riley McLaughlin, Amelia Morrison. Pedro Nicolomir, Emma Pelletier, Abby Sanders, Alyssa Stanley, Trista Stanley, Andrea Stevens, and Tegan York. Again, I will make sure that these get to the students, and I appreciate this sentiment from the school board. It means a lot to know that all of our efforts don't go unnoticed, and I appreciate all of your hard work with us. Guys, if you want a picture up there. Wow.
We want to thank you also, Mr. Waite, for your time and dedication to the students.
Thank you.
How about a board member or two, or perhaps the superintendent, or perhaps the principal?
All of us,
I don't know.
you get a full vote.
But we got to act like we like each other. My lens is
bestie.
that wide.
Do you want us to like hold these up or something?
Loud and proud. Bang. Think so. Yeah.
All right, well.
Any adjustments to the agenda?
No.
Public comment. The school board endorses the concept that community participation in the affairs of the school is essential to improve the quality of education for its students. To be eligible to address the board, an individual should reside within the school unit, be an employee of the school unit, or be invited by the board or superintendent to speak. The board shall give due attention to comments and contributions from the audience, but shall not be expected to respond or take action immediately. Audience inquiries other than simple questions shall be referred to the superintendent, who shall investigate or consider the matter and report to the citizen and to the board. If board action is indicated, the item may be included in the agenda for a subsequent meeting. Comments will be heard for no longer than 3 minutes per person. If you're on Zoom, the rules on Zoom are you have a name and you have a face when you speak. Seeing that. Public comment. To start off with is Teacher Appreciation Week, and I would like to thank all of our staff for all the very hard work that they do and how much this board appreciates what they do. Thank you to the staff. Any public comment? Okay, seeing none. Motion for approval of the minutes? Kevin,
Move to approve the minutes of the school board meeting April 19th, 2022, barring any errors or omissions.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? 5-0. A motion for the payroll warrant, please.
Motion to move to direct the superintendent of schools to authorize payment by the town treasurer to each party listed herein, the sum set against each name contained in school payroll warrant number 22-23 in the amount of $163,094.59 on May 5th, 2022.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second, Michelle. Any discussion on the payroll warrant? Seeing none, all in favor? 5-0. A motion for the payable warrant, please. Kevin,
Move to direct the superintendent of schools to authorize payment by the town treasurer to each party listed herein, the sum set against each name contained in school payable warrant number 22-33 in the amount of $190,709.45 on May 5th, 2022.
Second.
okay, I have a motion and a second on the payable warrant. Are there any questions?
I have a question, I think.
Okay, Kevin,
I don't thank Shelley for her email about the performing arts, but I think it was mentioned in the email about the curtain, and that was one of the payroll warrants, no? The curtain that was in the auditorium being replaced, no?
I think I mentioned that it was, that we did the seats, that we were the instrumental in starting that capital campaign, that we had purchased a lot of other equipment for the auditorium. The curtains have been on a list of things that we need to replace, but I'm not sure I specifically.
Okay. I just see that it was in there.
it was the yesterday.
As
That is part of
okay.
our.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yes,
Yeah, that
yes,
was-
and thank you very much, we're very grateful for
Thank you.
that happened.
Any other questions? Seeing none, all in favor? 5-0. Number 8, nomination. Superintendent's hiring, is that you speaking?
Yep, I'd like to take an opportunity. So these are individuals that have completed their first successful year of teaching with us, and we're nominating them for a second probationary year. So I'd like to go over those individuals. Emma Alley, Lauren Fowler-Pratt, Leah Malcolm, Rosalind Marcella, and Gabriel Remillard.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? 5-0.
Yep, okay, so this next agenda item is for continuing contract teachers. So these are teachers who have successfully completed their either 2 or 3 year probationary period. And that is determined by their hire date. The state had moved to a 3-year probationary period for a while, and then they have moved back to a 2-year. So you'll see some listed as 2 years and some 3. Allison DeMillo, Laura Dwyer, Dottie Friel, Alyssa Laporte, Tina McIntyre, Lori Moscone, and Susan Kovats.
Second.
Any discussion?
I have a question.
Sure.
So when you have different steps, that's because of, we taught somewhere else, or they have certifications, or
That's years prior experience when they arrive with us. So you'll see that some individuals may have 2, one has 23. So it's prior teaching experience that we credit them for the contract.
Any other questions? Seeing none, all in favor? 5-0. Number 10, the notification of the salary agreement.
Yeah, so I'm not gonna read through all these individuals, but I do want to say that this is informational only. There's no board action on this. This is just notifying the board based on the contract that there's salary agreements issued to the following individuals on that list. And as you'll see, these are our continuing contract individuals.
Anybody have any questions of Dr. McNaught? Number 11, approve a senior class trip. Your motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion? Kevin?
How was this funded, first case?
Beth, and it's
Yeah, so the senior class trip is part of their fundraising activities that they do from freshman through senior year. After their junior year, once they put on prom, then anything that's left and whatever else they fundraise through their senior year provides them with money for this trip. So it's all funded by the students. And their
Next thing would
fundraising
be-
activities.
How many chaperones will there be?
There's going to be, let's see. I think there's 7, including the school nurse.
Do we know how many kids are going?
We don't know yet, but it would be less than 30.
And the final thing is, do we have any liability if something happens? Do they have to sign a waiver or something?
They have permission slips that they
Okay,
get signed from parents, yes.
I actually have an itinerary to share too. So the itinerary right now is obviously not finalized because we need board approval before we finalize the pieces of the itinerary, but they're gonna leave Stearns approximately 5 o'clock in the morning with a pit stop at the Gardner Rest area. They're gonna arrive at Quincy Market in Boston roughly around 11 o'clock. And then from 11 to 1, they're gonna have an opportunity to explore Quincy Market, and that'll also be an opportunity to eat lunch there. From 1 to 3:30, they're exploring some options within Boston, like the museum and a few other places. So that's the part of the itinerary that needs to be completely wrapped up. 3:30, they are gonna leave back, heading towards Maine for a 6 o'clock Sea Dogs game. And then following the Sea Dogs game, they're making the journey back home. So the trip's gonna run from approximately 5 o'clock in the morning until 11:30 at night.
that's a long day.
That is a very long day.
Who's taking it? How are they getting it?
My bus. Sear bus, yes.
Sear bus?
Just so you-
Yes.
Yeah,
And we only need the one bus, obviously.
Yep.
And it's fully funded.
fundraising.
Anybody have any more questions about the trip? All in favor? 5-0. Number 12. Superintendent's nominations. I need a motion. Kevin?
I move to approve superintendent's nomination of and authorize the superintendent to hire Ian Sutherland as Assistant Special Education Director at a stipend of $8,000 for 190 days for the 2022-2023 school year.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Do we hear a discussion? Kevin?
I'll let her go first.
Erica?
Can I just hear what the job entails, the details of the job?
Yep, so this position is being created to assist with managing the paperwork for the special education, IEPs, planning of the meetings, ensuring valuations are completed, the timeframes associated with it. And then a big part of this job is going to be attending a lot of the IEP meetings and being the administrator for those meetings.
504 as well.
504 as well, yep.
Kevin?
My question would be, I'm assuming this is a stipend, so she'll be still doing her speech show?
So the proposal that I discussed with the board earlier is that she would remain on our teaching contract, and we would provide a stipend, because this is
Okay.
grant funded. So she'll be receiving a stipend for the administrative part. So with this change, we will need to hire somebody for speech services.
Any more questions?
Is
Erica?
it a full-time speech SLP?
Yes, so Ian's full-time with us now, so,
Okay.
you know, providing this approved, we would obviously need to be looking for a full-time speech person.
Okay.
So, yeah, we do have Mrs. Freeland, but she works part-time with us.
Anything else? Seeing no more questions, all in favor? 5-0.
Josh, and this is gonna take some duties away from you, right? That you're not gonna have to do.
Yeah, so this is gonna, right now, I spend a good part of my days attending IEP meetings, and then pretty much every day after school. So that's gonna alleviate that, so I can start focusing on some of our other pieces that we discussed, like curriculum. and everything.
Number 13. Need a motion?
I move to approve the superintendent's nomination of and authorize the superintendent to hire Charles E. Tapley Jr. as a high school math teacher with the BS, bachelor's degree at step 0, $40,000 for the 2022-2023 school year.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion?
The 40,000 is minimum, right? That we have, right?
That is correct. Yep.
Erica?
Charlie will be at step 0. He's the new teacher with us. So,
Is he currently employed with us?
he is, yeah. So Charlie works with our Title I program at Granite, and he runs our computer lab there.
Will we be hiring a new computer person then?
Yeah, so his position and placement is through the Title I program. So yes, and that's a grant funded position. So we will be advertising and hopefully hiring somebody there.
Okay.
Any other questions? Seeing none, all in favor? 5-0.
Congratulations, Charlie. I think he's up on the screen here. Yep. Well,
Student report?
So the Stearns varsity softball team is currently holding a record of 2-1. On April 21st, they lost against Searsport, and then they won against PCHS on April 22nd and PBHS on April 25th. The Stearns varsity baseball team currently holds a record of 3-0. They also played and defeated Searsport, PCHS, and PBHS. On Saturday, April 30th, the junior class had a fundraiser from 12 a.m. to 12 p.m. This is their last fundraiser that they're doing before prom. And the sophomore class is doing a Little Caesars fundraiser until May 19th. They will also be hosting a spaghetti dinner on May 3rd. They will offer dine-in or takeout from 4:30 p.m. to 7 p.m. It will be $8 a person or $25 for a family of 4 and $5 for each additional member. This will be held at the Millinocket Elks Lodge. And then the freshman class will be doing a bottle drive on May 28th, and they're also looking into doing a car wash fundraiser this summer.
Anybody have any questions of Julie? No? Administrative reports?
Alicia is actually at our sophomore fundraiser right now, we're speaking dinner, so.
Oh, that's right. I remember
Yep.
reading that.
Would it be possible to read her report out loud?
Why not?
The last few weeks, the cafeteria staff have been working hard to continue providing meals to students. There still remains an issue with supply chain. However, it has not yet had a great impact on our food service output. We have done our best to provide the meals that are listed on the menu, only changing choices when absolutely necessary. As of 4/29/22, the number of reimbursable breakfasts served was 1,816. and the number of reimbursable lunches was 2,103. The total number for both Granite and Stearns.
Thank you. Cody?
I thought he would, but he was here. I don't know.
Louis?
Do we have Cody's report to read?
I did not.
I did not see one. Louis?
Yeah. April, pretty much April is our outdoor month, provided snow is gone, and this year it was, so it gave us a good jump on getting things done. We've had some Aprils where we have to actually hire somebody to come in and snow blow the baseball and softball fields. And fortunately this year, we were able to get on the fields early, and a lot of the field work, all the field work pretty much now we do. We used to share some of that work with the rec department, but we pretty much do all of that now. So a lot of work getting, we have almost 40 acres of athletic complex that we maintain. So a lot of ground to get ready for each season. And so we've been working, getting primarily the baseball and softball field ready for the season, but also football, practice football, field hockey also. This is the time of year we reseed them and slicer seed them and aerate them, as well as getting the grounds swept in conjunction with when Public Works come around with the sweepers and all of that. So a lot of time in April spent outdoors, weather permitting. So we get a lot of that done in the last several weeks. We also began moving some of the furniture back in that we had moved out during COVID, and primarily the biggest part was the cafeterias of both schools and returning those back to a more normal state. The kids have been very excited to, I know my own has certainly been excited to sit with his own friends again. So that was a nice change. It was a lot of work. Fine, we had to put in individual seating during COVID for social distancing. Fortunately, years and years ago, when we closed down all the schools, we saved almost 300 desks out in the Blue Barn in the upstairs, which saved us during COVID. However, all those had to be lugged back upstairs to the second floor and be put away. Great workout. Also, with some of the COVID money, we were, as I mentioned earlier, able to purchase a John Deere Gator utility vehicle for our field maintenance, and I can tell you this has been a super help. The previous one that we had just was not capable of doing what we needed it to do. So that's been a godsend in dragging fields and aerating and doing all of those things, as well as cutting speedy around game to game. So yeah, I can see a lot of positive use and work for that in the future. And as was mentioned, the window, the draperies have all been changed in the auditorium. One of the big concerns around that, obviously, for me is fire safety. Those all have to have a fire rating. So it's a huge amount of combustible material. So that is a nice benefit of having some of that money to be able to put at something that we've long wanted to do and wouldn't probably been able to do otherwise. We're still waiting on meeting with Hussey regarding the last section of seating. They have to come up and verify the plan and everything, and sign off before it's actually shipped for the manufacturing order is put in. So that was supposed to happen during break. They still haven't come for that. I've got many other little projects, big projects in the pipeline as well. Still working on some of the COVID money things that we were doing, elevator repairs, some more heating, a few more heating things to tie up. It's a process with the supply chain the way it is, and prices the way it is, and availability of workers the way it is. It's those are going to be challenges moving forward, but we're working on them one by one. So, any questions?
You can guess my question.
Can't imagine.
Any, because I know I just got away with it, it was 540, I think. So is there any move, it's going the wrong way now, right?
Yeah, right now it's a tough, a a few days ago, last week at one point, I actually attended a meeting with Maine Power Options, which is who we do our bidding with. Of course, nobody's coming out and giving any firm pricing, but they are planning on holding meetings in the coming month to try to wrestle down a plan. We could be looking at waiting, and it's gonna be a tough budgetary thing, but we've had situations like this happen in the past, and we've actually had to wait until fall for a better bid price. So that could be the case we're facing. We may not have a price prior to budget approval for fuel. We're gonna have to go with our best guess and navigate from there. And we've done that many times in the past. Certainly it's better to know going in, but
And we'll talk everything over with what we have for price now.
keep you informed as I attend these meetings with them, and they're the best. They do the market research, and they got some pretty high-up professional people that follow all that, so. I'm gonna present a crystal ball.
Anybody else have any questions for Wood? No? Mr. Hisco?
Yeah, so Mr. Hisco is not with us tonight. I do have some permission from Mr. Hisco's family to share some information. So Mr. Hisco is currently hospitalized, and he has been for several days now. He is in an intensive care unit. They are continuing to work to identify what is making him ill. At this point in time, his numbers have been improving across the board with some of his organ functions. His liver continues to be the main concern, though. So we do ask everybody to keep him and his family in his thoughts and prayers. Sam himself and his family and his children. So, thank you.
Ms. Peavy? Is that a 7-page report or
2.5.
2.5? Okay.
2.5. And some I can leave out because Jillian covered it, so, and I just wanted to let the board know some of those fundraisers that Jillian was talking about. That's what funds a lot of these things for our students, so for the prom and for the senior trips and things like that. So those are the fundraisers I was referring to. We have one happening tonight. It's a spaghetti dinner going on right now at the Elk, so thought I'd let people know that too. I'd like to thank Mr. Waite and the Unified Performing Arts students that could be here tonight and the parents that joined. So some things going on in the school. In Mrs. DeMello's science classes, freshman science students are working on their inventions for the upcoming invention convention that is tentatively set to be held on June 7th. So they're studying inventors and what it takes to invent a product and mass market it, as well as learning about patents and the importance of filing a patent for an invention. Mr. McLean's classes, students and staff have been thoroughly enjoying the new Alienware computers with lightning fast processing speeds that make the esports teams very happy. So we have hosted weekly practices and matches for the esports team in the computer lab. And they report that the new computers are giving them a great edge against a very competitive group of schools nationwide. The computer applications class has completed lessons in Microsoft Word and Excel. Those are 8 chapters each, and are now halfway through 8 chapters of PowerPoint. Students are right on track, and it is looking like everyone enrolled will be earning a college credit for this class. The business and personal finance class has been learning about budgeting and getting out of debt. The class has been enjoying presentations from each student on the various elements of Dave Ramsey's plans for getting out of debt and staying out of debt. So they have learned how one student in the Midwest bought over $900 worth of groceries using coupons, and by the time he was done, the store ended up owing him $5. This has been a fun bunch of presentations from a great group of students. Digital design and digital art students have also been enjoying the new computers a great deal. They've been learning new techniques for creating great text effects, the likes of which can be seen in professional magazines, TV, and other media sources. And when the students catch up on their work, they've been invited to try out the new virtual reality headsets, and they absolutely love them. In Mrs. Stevens' classes, the annual 6th grade science fair is happening this Thursday, May 5th, from 6 to 7 in the Stearns cafeteria. So the students have been working hard on their project since March. They have conducted controlled experiments, collected and analyzed their results, and researched the scientific principles explaining their projects. So we are very proud of the work and dedication that they have put into these projects. And Mr. McGibbon's junior history classes will be going on an historical walking tour of downtown Millinocket. This will happen in May and will be depending on the weather. But students are able to discover more about the history of their town. In Mrs. Campbell's art classes, both junior high and high school have been working on a value drawing unit. To grow and expand on their drawing skills, students have been working on a variety of drawing projects such as still lifes and observational drawings, gesture drawings, photo extension drawings, time drawing, and timed drawings. The time drawings were a favorite of many students. This is where an item was placed on the table in front of them and everyone had 5 minutes to create a value drawing for that subject. After the 5 minutes, students would rotate tables for a new subject and start all over again. And it's wonderful to see how the students have grown over the course of the unit. And even though students may have the same subject, no two drawings are the same. And they've done some very beautiful work. In the art wing, the hallway, there are all kinds of projects hanging on the walls. If anyone wants to go down after the meeting and take a look, there's some really nice work there. I'll skip the part about the sophomore class. Except for they have a brand new set of cornhole boards that were made by volunteers, and they are raffling them off. I believe the raffle will happen on June 10th. So they're doing that as a fundraiser. You can contact either Amanda Welsh or Allison Manello for more information. Mrs. Malcolm's life skills class. They were earning community service by baking 12 to 14 boxes of brownies for the sophomore class spaghetti dinner being held tonight. In Mr. Remelard's classes, the junior high band is excited to perform with the high school band, the junior high and high school choruses on May 11th. They've been working hard during class and during their weekly lessons. Music appreciation is learning about intervals, and they just finished learning about Mozart and will be doing a project on a composer of their choice from the Baroque, classical, or romantic musical time periods. In Mr. Leather's room, one of the 8th grade classes that has been working on some projects, they're continuing to work on finding a solution to homelessness among veterans. And so they'll travel to visit the Togue VA Center in June and have a face-to-face conversation with formerly homeless veterans in the Maine Bureau of Veterans Services. For esports, the season ended. Both the Mario Kart and Rocket League teams made it to the playoffs. And I'd just like to say that was pretty exciting for them because this is the first year that we've had esports. The Mario Kart team finished 32nd out of 211 teams playing and was defeated in a close match in the first round of the playoffs. The Rocket League team finished 6th out of 35 teams in Maine and made it to the second round of the playoffs. So this was an exceptional showing for a brand new esports program, and they've had a lot of interest from other students who would like to join the team next year. I can skip the baseball, softball. And this week, middle and high school are having Spirit Week and our second annual Minuteman Cup competition. Staff and students are participating in competitions throughout the week. Each grade is a team and they work together to earn points. Our staff is also a team competing. At the end of the week, winners will be announced and prizes awarded, including bragging rights to the Minuteman Cup Trophy, which was created by Mr. Brown. Competitions range from academic challenges, engineering skills, athletic competitions, artwork, and performances. This event was created last year to inspire teamwork, enhance our school climate, and to boost overall social, emotional, and mental health after dealing with the stresses of COVID. The Minuteman Cup was so successful, we have decided to make this an annual event. And many, many thanks go to Amanda Welsh and Christy Hayes for all of their planning and scheduling and hard work on this. Another special thanks I would like to go to the Millinocket Elks. They're sponsoring an ice cream social at the end of the week for our students. And this week, as Mr. Stewart mentioned, is Teacher and Staff Appreciation Week, and today is Teacher Appreciation Day. So we have some nice surprises and treats planned to honor our dedicated staff, and please remember to thank our teachers and all of our staff when you see them for all the work that they do and continue to do.
Anybody have any questions for Ms. Peters?
I want to make a comment. We have two students that won medals at Skills USA, and that one of them is representing Maine in Atlanta, Georgia,
Yes.
in June, so that's real good. What?
That was going into next month.
Next month.
report.
Oh, so-
It's okay.
We'll do it again next month. Beth.
Yes, we definitely will.
Okay, great. Any other comments to ruin next month's? Anybody got any other comments? Beth? Seeing none. Dr. McNaughton.
Yes, so I wanted to start with a COVID-19 update. So since vacation, we've had one confirmed positive case associated with Granite. We've had 2 among staff and 5 here at Stern. So we've got 8 total, again, that since vacation. So in respects to what is some of the trends we're seeing in the state, we're doing extremely well with COVID. So, we're continuing to encourage the kids for social distancing, hand washing, and those things are definitely helping. So my hat goes off to the students and staff for continuing to keep us safe. Adori. So Adori is a new special education management tool, and this helps in monitoring deadlines, scheduling IEPs, and housing all associated paperwork. One of the neat pieces with Adori is when we have students transfer to and from us, this gives us a platform to be able to receive information and records quicker from other schools, and then have records go to other schools quicker. One of the challenges we face now as a student transition to us, they could arrive and start prior to us having records for them. So this allows a click of a button, literally the sending school to share information with us. So we've done a series of trainings on that with the staff, and we're looking for full implementation at the start of this coming school year. LD 1874. So this is the act to clarify COVID-19 paid leave for school employees. So we're very thankful on April 15th, Governor Mills signed this into law. So to give a little bit of background with this law was enacted by the legislation, but I think inadvertently there was a sundown date put into the law. And so what this does is it provides the schools department and employers an opportunity not to penalize staff and individuals that have to go out with COVID due to COVID-related sickness themselves, requiring quarantining, or in a situation where folks are taking care of family and relatives that are experiencing COVID. So the first rendition of this legislation had a sundown date in it. So we had a lot of staff that were still dealing with COVID that it started impacting their sick days, and in some cases impacted their pay as well if they exceeded their sick days. So this new legislation helps us address that. So staff are working with Mr. Deacon to identify the days and or the pay associated that they will be eligible for. We have a process set up for that. It goes through Mr. Deacon to process to cross-reference with our attendance records, and then it comes from me to approval. Drummond Woodsum is offering an additional seminar, which I plan to attend on this, but this was very, very great to see for all this.
Can I ask a question before you get through your whole thing?
Yes, sorry.
Will this have to be funded first and then reimbursement, or will they fund what we asked for?
So in a lot of cases, the money was budgeted for these folks. Okay, so in some situations, we're just, you may be down to 10 sick days, we're gonna issue you 5 back because you were out with COVID. They still receive pay because they're gonna go for these folks. School departments that don't have enough money to do that locally can access care money to do that.
Okay.
So. Any other questions for you? School-based health centers. So I attended a virtual workshop on Tuesday, April 26th to explore this concept. And the concept is a school-based health center. So models do exist in Maine where schools provide space and amenity to healthcare service providers. And that includes mental and physical health. Some of the needs that are filled with those, think of as wellness appointments, sports physicals, shots, boosters, those type of things. One of the things that they presented, there's been a significant switch in recent years to going away from the the physical health piece and focusing on the mental health piece. They used to report that approximately 25% of the need was physical health and 25% being mental health, and now they're saying it's 75% mental health. So what I am doing is exploring options for the mental health piece. We have local healthcare facilities that are close for a lot of our needs. Our continuum mental health services continue to be an issue. We do have open contracts with community care in Tide Valley. Unfortunately, they're facing a staffing shortage like we are, and I'm not being able to provide folks to us. So I'm trying to explore this avenue with all the resources and the individuals involved to see if that may be able to help us in our situation. We've always been able to provide a space, but it's a matter of finding the workers at this point. And then I'm sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
So this school-based health center would be here, you're saying, on site to service our students?
Yeah, so what they typically do is they typically assign a space after school hours, a lot of them do. Sometimes they do it during school hours, depending on the availability. And we provide a space, and then obviously amenities go with that. They have to have access to a bathroom and stuff like that. And then whatever healthcare partner with will provide the staff to come in to be able to do this. So the schools that are participating in it now say it's obviously a convenience thing because your child can go to school in the morning and get their sports physical during the day. So it saves parents some of that piece back and forth. But one of the things that really caught my interest was that mental health piece, to see if we could potentially access other agencies to be able to support those needs. Because since COVID started, we have a lot of students that have lost social worker services. All right, and the last part of my report. So Ms. Peavy and I attended a grant seminar regarding extended learning opportunities. So I've reported out on extended learning opportunities before, but to give everybody just a brief update. So these are learning opportunities that students may qualify for that will give them not only high school credits, but also work on the job experience. So there's a grant, so the same company, Centiro and Gear Up, that we've worked with and tried to get grants before. We met with them to talk about some additional grant funding that's supposedly becoming available to look into this further. There is a process, and it is a timely process. So one of the biggest decisions that at some point the school board would be asked to make is whether you feel it's appropriate for students who are working in that environment to receive high school credit for it. Now, obviously, there's parameters and learning goals established with that, but we're looking to see if the funding could even be an option for us, so we can potentially bring that forward to you. So, so there'll be more to come on this, certainly.
Anybody have questions of Dr. McNaughton? We might take a quick international program presentation.
some additional copies for the public.
I will say as he's passing things out, it's nice to see an audience again. Thank you for coming. Nice to see faces.
So we get a several page document. I want to take an opportunity to kind of walk through folks through the international program. We're going to talk about some pieces of previous years of what the program used to exist. We're going to talk about the current status of the program and some of the challenges we're currently facing with the program itself. We're going to talk about some of the goals and plans that we are currently working on to overcome some of those challenges. We're going to include some information regarding our summer program that we're trying to get running as well. And then a little bit about the revenue in the past. So to start off, we do have Michelle McGreevy here, who manages this program. We have Josh Deacon as well. He's virtually with us. So we have some folks to answer questions if any come up. So in previous years, we typically have 5 to 10 Chinese students that join us on campus, and then an additional 1 to 3 European students. Okay. And again, this has been largely based on finding home stays. In addition to that, we've typically had on average between 40 and 50 Chinese students registered for a dual diploma program. So these are students that remain in China at their school. They're working on standards that have developed by our program. So they're working on our standards. And what this allows us to do is be able to issue them a Stern's high school diploma upon graduation. So for them, that is a significant benefit because a lot of these students would like to come to college in the United States. So to date, since 2012, when things got running, there's been 499 students that has come through our international program. And that includes students that have participated in the dual diploma program. To give folks an update on where we are currently with our international program. So we have 3 students here with us currently. We have a young man from Germany, 1 from France, and 1 from Spain. These 3 young men have fit right in. They've done an outstanding job. They're involved in sports, performing arts, which you saw earlier tonight. So it's been a great opportunity for our kids to learn about the cultures of these countries. So we had an additional 10 students lined up from the European countries. However, once again, as I've noted before, host families continue to be an issue. Unfortunately, not finding host families has a loss of approximately $150,000 in revenue. So again, we plead with folks if you're interested. We'd love to have you as a host family. As far as the Chinese students specifically, we do not have any on campus, and we do not anticipate any in the future. What has occurred when COVID hit and when we had a change in our presidency, there was some impact on trade relations. And so the Chinese government has advised actually students not to be traveling to the United States any longer. So that part's obviously very unfortunate. But like I said, one of our saving graces is we do have the diploma program. So and the last part I have on that, so we do currently have 38 students participating in that program currently, and that is through Zabo. And that's going to give us a revenue this year of approximately $92,805.86. So I do want to address that issue a little bit. One of the things we've discussed with the town council the other night, and we are meeting with a few folks from the town next week. So there was an expected revenue of $75,000 to come in from this program. Unfortunately, with the current COVID situation and the trade relations, that's created part of the issue that we're working to address with the town. That same issue actually occurred last year because the program was in the hole $1,200 last year. So I think one of the discussions and some of the work that needs to be done between us and the town is looking at that expected revenue money where that needs to be adjusted to. As you'll see a little bit later on, there was obviously some glorious days with some significant revenue coming into the town, so. Looking to the future, so we have approximately 23 students from European countries that want to come to Stearns in the future. Again, host families, I know Michelle makes this plea frequently, so we're doing it again here. If you're interested in being able to be a host family, please call Michelle 723-6400 or send her an email. We have currently 4 European students that are confirmed with placements for next school year. And right now, based on our contracts and conversation, we're anticipating 160 Chinese students in our dual diploma program. So the combination revenue there next year is somewhere in the $220,000 range. Summer program, Michelle has been working extremely diligently on our summer program. So in years past, our summer program was intended for those students to come here during the summer, get them excited, set the hook, have them come to school with us in the fall. With obviously, with the pieces that I've spoken with China, we are starting to branch out and looking at students from other countries. There is a few other programs that we're modeling ours after, but Michelle has been in touch with 5 different agencies about summer programming. Depending on the agency you talk to, they look from anywhere from a 1 to a 3 week program. And so the primary purpose for them to come over is obviously to learn the English language better. And then we do a lot of outdoor recreation type and science-based activities with them. So we do have staff lined up to be able to participate in that program if we can manage it. And then depending on the agency and the program, we negotiate with them, but we're looking somewhere a 1 week program in the neighborhood of $25,000 up through a 3 week program in the neighborhood of $75,000. Is there any questions so far?
I have a question about the summer program.
Yep.
Will they be hosted with families in town?
So no, they're going to be hosting Big Moose.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Why at Big Moose? I thought there was a facility. The Topon facility.
Yeah, so that won't be ready for this summer. The work on the Topon facility will be occurring throughout this summer, so it wouldn't be available this summer. So our intention in the future is to be able to use Topon because that would be a significant savings to us. So that would increase the revenue for the program.
What's the cost of staying at Big Moose?
Michelle, do you know that?
It depends on the number of students. Last time I was talking with an agency, they were bringing about 20 students and it was going to cost about $15,000 to stay at the Big Moose.
Be responsible for food as well.
Big Moose will provide breakfast and dinner. And we will provide lunch.
And is that included in the 15,000? Or is that additional?
That would be, Big Moose would charge an additional fee for breakfast and dinner.
Any idea how much it would be for each of those meals per kid?
I'm just trying to guess off the top of my head. I think she charges around 10 for breakfast and 15 for dinner per student. It's just a roundabout figure.
And how much would we be charging these kids to stay?
Well, we've been negotiating back and forth with agencies on pricing. We've looked at other schools in the state of Maine that offer summer programs. There's really not a lot of schools in Maine that offer an English intensive international summer program. And Josh and I have been talking about this, and we have a perfect opportunity to provide a great opportunity for these kids with our resources. So we talked from anywhere between 2,500 per student to 5,000 per student, depending upon if they're going to stay 1 week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks.
How soon are you thinking that you guys might know more information about the summer program? You guys have any deadlines or
Well,
any dates?
I had 5 agencies respond that they were interested. And I just heard back recently, 3 of them said no, that they didn't have students to send this summer, possibly next summer. 1 agency gave me a maybe, so that's where we stand right now.
And then the other one just hasn't got back to you then?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, part of how these agencies work, just so people can understand, is they will essentially reach out to foreign countries and students and say, we'll provide a summer programming, and we're gonna charge you X amount of dollars. And then they work with programs like ours to negotiate back and forth for what we're gonna charge. Obviously, the more that they can negotiate on their side, the more they put in their pocket, and then obviously we're trying to do the opposite. So it becomes a negotiation process if we get that far. But our program obviously being redesigned, being brand new, hopefully we can have some students arrive this summer, but obviously our intent is now that our name is out there and this program is out there, that we hope to have more interest with these agencies as the years go on.
Now, if this maybe agency, how many kids were they looking to bring?
They didn't say.
They didn't say. No idea at all.
No idea.
Where are the agencies? Are they looking from China, from Europe, from South America, from,
European students.
they're all European, no China?
Yep.
Any other questions at this point?
Okay, the next page, so just, this is to give an idea of the past revenues. So back in FY 13, 223,000, 14, 334, 15 was 126, 317, and 16, and 17, 351, 18, 371, 19 was 323, 20 was 396. And then we have the onset of COVID. Things have started falling off. So last year FY was $47,000. So again, we're being greatly impacted this. In the next page, I am going to talk a little bit about the contracts that we do have in place. There's a lot of money in the contract. However, one thing we're facing is having that to fill the contracts. So. So Zabot, the first one, this is the school that we currently recently just signed the contract, and this money is en route to us. They had a change in administration earlier this year, so their administration, they got new folks involved to take over. There was some updates on the contracts that have to go through the Chinese Educational Authority. So that process has been all taken care of, and we've got this revenue on the way. You can see where Lee Ren sits. Again, if we can get Lee Ren to participate, we're looking at $36,000 there. Ningbo was a big one. That contract is written for a lot of students, 360. They write these contracts. Typically, those schools do not have that many students to provide, but they are written with the capacity to be able to do so. And then we are still working with Judy, hopefully to be able to get something going with that. So that was in the works last year.
Good question, George.
Yes.
Those contracts, are they tied into these amounts? And what happens if we can't provide the services?
well, if we can't provide the services, we're obviously in violation of the contract.
Could it be monetary tax?
Yeah, they could, if they decided to come after us, yes.
They haven't really fulfilled their end of it though, often, have they?
So they're written for a maximum number of students. What we're facing right now is, no, we have some that are not fulfilling. But that is also based on advisement for the government. So it kind of, they have an educational authority in China that everything goes through. So we sign a contract, it has to go through their authority, their school. So typically what happens is the school will take care of the contracts and then it goes to the educational authority, and that's the case with Ningbo right now. We have a contract sitting with their authority until the Chinese government sees fit to be able to release this contract, or it can't service those students with those. So, yeah, so, you know, there is some element of them violating their contracts as well.
Yeah, I think that on all of these from the past learnings that I've had, that they do these exorbitant amounts and then we only get not even a quarter, not even a tenth, or, you know, 10% of what they say they're gonna send.
Yeah, I mean, based on the revenue figures and you look at the past, if everybody sent their maximum amount, obviously our revenues would have been higher. So I agree with you. I think that, you know, these contracts are written to say, hey, they go, we can service 360 students with your diploma program. They usually don't have 360 students
Right.
in the program. But that does give them the option to be able to go that road if they have that much interest.
How many dual diplomas did we get out last year?
Do you remember on some Michelle last year?
No, I can get the number for you.
Yeah,
I
I
don't
can check
remember
that.
how many I sent.
This year we're scheduled for, it was 36, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah. 36, 39. something like that.
So we're anticipating going from 30 to 160 next year.
if Ningbo
Yeah.
comes through.
Okay, if they come
If
through.
their contract is.
But I thought that their contract was held up.
If
By
the
It is.
Chinese Education Authority approves it.
Okay, so we really have no idea
Right.
if they'll approve it or not.
No.
So if they don't approve it, then we certainly won't have that 160 students with the revenue of $220,000.
That's correct.
Well, we could have the 23 from Europe.
Mhm.
That we're looking for homestays.
Yep.
But-
What's their price per year? No,
Well,
We negotiate with them as well.
around 27, 20,000.
It is run anywhere from 3,000 upwards of over 15,000.
the only reason I shake my head no, when you say 23 is we can't find a placement. for
That's what I
23
mean,
students. Right,
Yeah,
So right now, we only have 4 European students enrolled 100% for next year.
Not enrolled. There's been confirmation with a host family and confirmation on the agency's end. Now that student has to go through the process of applying for a visa and the interview with the consulate. So there's some more hoops to jump through.
And could all of those hoops be jumped through before September?
Yes,
Okay.
Do you help with that?
I assist. Yes.
And so, and what will be, if, in the perfect world, if they come in, what are we gonna charge these 4 European students each?
It's, well, yeah, Josh negotiates. It's
Yeah, we
different for each one.
negotiate. So based on past negotiations, we're gonna be going somewhere between $15,000 to $20,000 per student.
these agencies get a share too, right? That money.
Well, like I was saying earlier, what they do is they'll say, hey, we'll send your students to America's school for, we're gonna charge you this amount of money. So the more they can negotiate with the school, the more, you know, provides additional revenue to us. So that's why we go in and we obviously negotiate on our behalf to ensure as much revenue to come to us as possible. So there is a significant amount of back and forth with that. The contracts that we do have set figures in them, but when we're taking in students from these other countries, it's literally a negotiation. There's been students that have attended here so as little as $3,000.
how many homestays do you have lined up for next year, Michelle?
I have 3, and one of those homestays is going to take 2.
And I'm sorry, how much does it cost for us to house a student?
So we pay $750 a month.
Okay.
To house the students.
And then how's the meal thing go? How do they, do the host families provide meals, or is it a stipend, or is that included in this?
Covered under,
The
we pay
contract
for it.
rate, yeah.
Okay,
Well, the
and
books
then,
have been free the past couple of years, but yeah, we cover that.
so that's in addition to the $750. Or,
It hasn't been since COVID because we've been able to provide free
Right.
meals. If that reverts, then obviously we need to, that will be part of that negotiation.
right,
Because we'll then be responsible. For
providing the
Right, exactly. Any additional questions?
and when do you think we'd get confirmation about the 23 European students?
When I get host families,
So if there's no host families, then we would be getting these 23 students.
correct.
We would be able to take them.
And in the past, we've talked about having a place where we can house, you look at the, I don't know what's called, atrium, I don't know what's called. Time in, about having a floor there and be able to house them. So it'd be great if we had a dormitory, like some of the private schools have, the Academy House, Dole Foster. If we had that, that would make things more attractive, but one thing that we don't have, that Lee Academy is a private school, they can come for 4 years, they can only come 1 year for us. That's something that hurts.
And the other important thing, when you start talking about dormitories, you can't put all your eggs in one basket with this. Obviously, you know, if we had all our eggs in the China basket and COVID, schools are feeling the impacts from that. So I think it's really important if that discussion, I know it's happened several times in the past that I've been aware of. If that in the future, we got to really look to diversify and take students from all over the world.
Anything else?
Well, I mean, I guess the big question is if we are in a deficit right now with the town, and even if we do get the summer programs with that anticipated money, we're still gonna be in deficit with the town to the tune of like $60,000. And that's not gonna include the money that we pay out from this year. Oh, because they motioned to approve any expenditures through the end of the year, so this program lasted through the year. So we're at a deficit right now with this international program.
So we have approximately $36,000 coming. And some of the figures that you saw at the town council meeting, excuse me. So if we would apply that to our deficit, we got about a $40,000 deficit.
Mhm.
So
Sorry, excuse me, go ahead.
would you like me to finish?
Yes, please.
Okay, so again, you're looking at this $75,000 of anticipated revenue. If you subtract what we've got, you're looking at right around that $40,000 mark that, so we have 36 coming. So if we have the summer program, we are not going to be in the red. If we don't have the summer group program, then we will be in the red. And one of the things that I'm meeting with the town to work through in the future is how to appropriately set this expected revenue piece, because it was obviously created an issue last year because the program was in the red. It's going to create an issue this year. You know, we got to think about that number moving forward, knowing what we know of the impact of the Chinese contracts, COVID-19, and the fact that they're not advising travel to the US. So that is what is creating that issue that we need to work through.
So even if we did get the $36,000, the summer program doesn't sound overly promising, considering we just have a maybe. And we don't have a confirmation of how many students would come in. with all of the expenses from the big moves. I think that number of potentials is pretty aggressive for the summer program. So then that would go into next year at quite a it's still a significant deficit,
There would be a deficit there, yes.
significant. And
Any other questions?
Seeing none.
so that's acceptable for everybody to do that,
Just a presentation.
okay.
You don't know at this point.
Yeah, but we're in a deficit with the town right now. And they're covering us for the next 3 months with no projected, with some income coming in, but it's still not gonna cover what we owe the town, even with the projected income that Josh is speaking of. So that's my thought on it. We're operating this program in a deficit with a lot of unknowns.
My question would be, is this deficit because of COVID?
It is, I mean, the revenue's not there because of.
We paid our bills. I know Shelley was here when we first started this, and this saved the school system. We would have been had massive layoffs. You see Shelley nodding her head, so I can remember a few things, I think, that this saved our school system. We would have had massive layoffs. We would have been talking cutting programs, cutting teachers.
That was 10 years ago.
We made a problem. You're talking the last 2 years is where we're showing a deficit.
Right.
All the other years, what was it? That we brought money into the school system.
Yeah, we brought substantial money into
So,
it.
you know, you're talking 300 and something thousand, 371,000 one of the years. That's huge. In a $6 million, $7 million budget. That's huge.
Where did all that money go?
Huh?
Where did all that money go?
To repay.
Well, I think it was to bring debt down.
So what is the anticipated, that $75,000 anticipated, is that a real amount of money, is that just?
That's one thing
It's
I'd
what we
like to
think
see.
we're gonna get, so we're gonna spend it now? I
If
don't
it was-
understand that.
If it was 371,000 revenue, how much were our expenses that year? Wasn't 371,000?
I would have to go, no, I would have to go back and dig all.
So how
those
much of that
figures
money
up.
should be sitting somewhere in an account that takes care of this deficit for COVID? And I think we all agree it's because of COVID. If we had the Chinese doing the dual diplomas and stuff, there'd be no deficit. Again, that's just my opinion,
But there is a deficit.
and we have a surplus from the school system. We're gonna talk about wish lists for people coming up here on a budget. If we're behind in that, let's use it to fix that problem. I want to come into the town at zero. But if we can use that money to fix the revenue that we projected, and that's what a budget is, it's projections. You don't know what you're gonna get. If everyone had a crystal ball, Louis would be locking his oil in at $2 a gallon. You can't do that. We don't know. How much of a deficit are we gonna have with heating oil?
Right.
Are we gonna freeze the schools up or are we gonna buy the heating oil? Sorry to get worked up, that's all.
I think to meet the maintaining solution oriented moving forward, I think there needs to be a lot of consideration into that anticipated revenue piece. That's the piece that really needs to be addressed, because there was a deficit last year. We know there's gonna be a piece of a deficit this year. Knowing where COVID is, knowing what the advisement from the Chinese government, that number is gonna have to be adjusted, obviously. Because we don't want this program to run in the red. This program's brought in literally millions of dollars into this community over, since it started back in 2013. I mean, that's a lot of money that's done a lot of good for You know, I'm assuming the school department, I'm assuming the town as well. So we want to be able to find a solution to that. But that's the key pieces. And we got to look at that anticipated revenue moving forward to ensure that that's accurately reflecting the current, you know, state of the world.
Jillian can probably tell you what the international kids have added to the, you know, the experiences of the kids here. You know, they treated them as one of their own, and they learned a lot from them, and they learned a lot from that, so I think it's a win-win for our students.
Yeah, I was gonna mention something. I think it's a great experience for not only the exchange students, but also the students at Stearns. We gain a lot from this.
Just to reiterate what the town council said, it's not about if the program's good or bad or beneficial or not. I think it's an awesome program. I think that it definitely does benefit both parties. But I mean, it does come down to a numbers game, and you can't operate a program that's in a deficit.
And that's why I asked the question about if we stop this, we have contracts, what's the cost to us? There's gonna be a cost. If we break our contract, we may not be suing them, but they're gonna sue us. And do we want to get into that battle?
Any other comments, questions?
All right, let's move on to a budget workshop. Really forget how fine the print is.
Yeah, I gotta have Cam make the copies from now on, just. This is way too small. I apologize.
I cannot magnify it. Yeah, really. Like my focus, I didn't work it.
All right, so the last workshop we had, we spent our time talking about the carryover funds that we're moving forward. And so at the end of that meeting, the outcome was the board asked me to look into 3 different scenarios or options, if you will. So that's what I am bringing back to you tonight, and I'm gonna go through each of those and explain those, so our guests can understand them as well. So starting on the top of the page, so the audited carryover is $595,000, as we discussed last time. There was a difference to the town with ED 279, so that was at 17,000. And we said, obviously, we don't want to come into an increase with the town, so we want to be able to make an adjustment there to cover that $17,000. I presented last time to recapture some budgeted materials that have been cut over a number of years, and that was at $376,000. And then we spent a considerable amount of time having a discussion about what to do with fuel oil. Louis presented to us and talked to us about the current market conditions, and I know we mentioned it earlier tonight. So our discussion was we want to set aside an additional 100,000 out of that carryover to be prepared for a spike in fuel oil, which we're seeing on a daily basis now. So that figure put us, if we were to accept those pieces, that figure put us down to $102,000 of carryover. So with that being said, I broke out some of those different options, and I'll work you through all of them. So I'm gonna talk about scenario 1A, which is the first one. Scenario 1B was the original idea for the AD position, so assistant principal, athletic director position here at Stearns. So we broke out the estimated cost of that scenario, and you can see that it comes out to $77,000 in change. So that left us with a carryover minus from that 102 of $24,000. Josh and I went back to work, and I'm going to go back to scenario 1A to talk real briefly, because I do not feel comfortable going into a budget with a $24,000 surplus, given the unknown with fuel oil, electric, and any of the other knowns that we face in the world of education. I don't find that to be acceptable. So Josh and I went back and spoke with some of the administrators and the pieces of the previously budgeted materials, that $376,000. And we looked at cutting from that the cost of the scenario 1B, the AP/AD position. Okay. So that would leave us a carryover of approximately $179,000 moving forward, which is a comfortable number.
What is the stipend for 15,000?
Yes, the stipend was 15. Yep.
So what is that?
So this contract would be written where we would keep that individual on a teacher contract and they would receive a $15,000 stipend for all assistant principal and athletic director responsibilities.
Would they teach?
No, they would be a full-time assistant principal athletic director.
So isn't that their salary? Isn't that the AP/AD salary then?
No, so there's generally two ways this happens in the education world. You can have them negotiate a separate contract, an administrative contract, or in situations where we're developing these positions, a lot of school departments opt to stipend the individual and keep them on a teacher contract. So that's what this scenario, I mean, we could build it out the other way, but that's what this scenario represents.
And you'd be replacing that staff.
That'd be correct.
Position.
Right, right. Yeah, we obviously have to fill it. If it's an internal candidate, we have to fill that position. If it's not an internal candidate, what would happen is that person would come in and they would fall where they would fall on our teacher contract and then receive the stipend.
Could you explain this whole thing again to me, less previous budgeted materials?
Yeah, so that was the discussion that we had at the last workshop about the pieces that had been cut from previous budget. There was a lot of supply materials. There was some money in there for tuition to kids piece if needed. So that was that discussion we had last time about all those different pieces.
And is kids piece someplace different? Like if we need to have some of our students go to kids piece, is that a different thing than this?
Yes, we have a line in the budget that provides money for kids piece. One of the things we've done here, looking toward the future a little bit, is as we discussed about putting some additional money aside for kids piece in case we needed it.
But not the auto line for that? I'm just so I understand, like.
No,
I'm
so-
really confused.
Yep, so if Michelle, if you go down to that $77,000 figure, so if we make some adjustments to this 376, what I would do is reduce some supplies, and then there was $50,000 in there for kids piece that we're removing from that 370. So we still have money to support our students that go to kids piece. It just, there wouldn't be that additional $50,000 buffer there.
Josh, is there a number for what the auditor is saying we should have on hand, so a surplus?
We should be carrying forward right around 150-ish is kind of the.
So is that 1%, 2%?
I'll have to do the math on that, yeah.
7 million, so 210 would be 3%, right?
I mean, schools, so currently, okay, it used to be 3% cap, and then it was changed to 5%. And then with COVID, there's a provision in the legislation right now that allows us to reserve up to 9%. So most school districts historically have been trying to shoot for 3%. And so that would obviously be something that would be sustained from year to year. Prior to COVID, it changed to 5%, so some schools were working on building that up, as well as building fuel oil reserve accounts. And then with COVID, like I said, they made a provision up to 9%. A big piece of that was schools' inability to hire staff. a lot of schools had a lot of unfilled positions, so that was a lot of money that was budgeted that was not spent. So that allowed schools to be able to reserve that money as carryover to be able to move forward for when the job market or the employer market improves.
Would this AP position still be shared with Beth, like the AD part of it? Or would it be on its own?
So it's its own standalone position. So Beth would be responsible for doing the principal duties.
Mhm.
And then this person would be responsible for those. I will, with that being said, for the sake of transparency, if it does end up being an in-house person, and if they're involved in coaching, there may be some coverage that we would need to adjust for and do something there. But the goal of this is, to be able to have that assistant principal to help deal with all the behavioral pieces and then cover the athletic pieces. I know that's something that Beth has brought to attention for quite a few years, given the number of students in the building, some of the situations we face. It's a monumentous task to really fill those positions with one person. Any additional questions regarding scenario one before I move on to scenario two? Okay, scenario two. So this has to do with social work services that was brought up and discussed. As you can see, looking at salaries, benefits, the other pieces, that project comes in right around the $62,000 mark.
Okay, so now my question is, why does scenario one have a stipend of $15,000, but this one does not?
Social workers, it's not administrative positions. So what we would be doing, we have two individuals that do the work on staff right now. If we were to put a third position in, we'd be hiring them on our teacher contract like we've done with the other two folks. So, but they don't have, obviously, they have some requirements that we met, but we're not asking them to bring forth an administrative certification to do what they need to do. And it's obviously a very different level of responsibility than an administrator.
And the principal right now are under administrative contract.
Our principals currently?
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
So, but we wouldn't have the assistant principal on an administrative one.
So the board could go one of two ways. Like I said, with new positions like this, as a school district, obviously want to try it, well, make sure it's going to be a good fit. Oftentimes, they do teacher contracts with stipends. I mean, if the board wanted to go a different direction, our negotiation committee could sit down and work up an administrative contract with the individuals.
What's the pros and cons of each one? Like, why would we go one way or the other?
It's the same thing we did with Josh.
Right, but I'm
Right.
asking, why would we go with a teacher contract plus stipend or administrative?
That's a good question. So one of the biggest benefits where we are fairly small school department fighting a big job market, it makes it more intriguing for staff that we currently have on staff to apply, because by doing that, they don't have to give up the longevity or their number of sick days. When you take an individual out of the teaching realm and out of that teaching contract, they're losing sick time, they're losing some of those benefits that are associated with that contract. Like year seniority is a big one. To be able to switch over to that other contract. So it makes the position more marketable in us being a small job market to be able to do that versus a separate administrative contract.
Also gives us the opportunity, if things don't work out, that they can stay in their teaching position.
Yeah, so that could be part of the negotiated pieces that they could return. Yeah.
And with the social work piece, what would, if we hired an individual for that, what would they be focusing on? Granite Street, high school, sharing?
So we have one at Granite, we have one here, so most likely be a split position, we utilize them where the need is. I'm not gonna speak for the high, I don't wanna speak for the high school, but I can tell you from my time at Granite, we have significant need for social work services. When COVID hit, Community Care was not able to fulfill their open contract with us. Katahdin Valley Health Center is in the same boat, finding these folks. So we had a lot of students that lost services. So I would say that it's split, but with that being said, I think we need to be smart and diligent about looking at our numbers and obviously making sure we can maximize the position, service as many people as possible. So
And what would the services
be social worker services.
Okay, but specifically, like.
Well, so social worker service is gonna meet with a family, meet with a student, developing a plan, a goals with them. They talk about a variety of different things. Some will support students to be able to deal with the whole life situations. They assist with helping with dealing with death or some type of disruption in the home. Divorce can be a fairly common one that we see. And then right down to some of those social, emotional interaction pieces we see in school. So it's individual based, but it really covers that entire realm of services for kids. Excellent. Any other questions about scenario 2? All right, scenario 3, home economics teacher. I do know from sitting on meetings in the past that in the past we've looked at industrial arts and home economic pieces. I know that we advertised, I think the year before last, unfortunately did not get any applications. But to build this scenario out, we're looking at a salary of approximately $50,000, and you have your taxes, benefits. This one's a little bit more expensive because of the equipment associated with home economics. With the $20,000 in there to update some of the pieces of equipment. And that is an estimate. We'd have to, if we go that route, we're gonna have to defer an assessment of our home economic space to make sure everything is still up to code, and then look at the pieces that we have in there. But obviously, there's an equipment cost associated with this that will need to be addressed. So you're looking at a total of $82,000 and change for that program. Any questions about scenario 3?
I'm the one who brought it up and I feel guilty. I think we gotta just cross it out.
I think one of the issues we will face with that is the certification piece is there's not a lot of schools that offer those programs sadly anymore. Therefore, there's a lot of individuals running around with those certifications.
I understand the reason trying to do this in colleges today, and they're not getting anybody.
Well, if you look at it from an employee perspective, when you're coming out of college into the certification world of the Department of Education, the last thing you want to do is pigeonhole yourself with limiting your job opportunities. And therefore, you see certifications like home economics and industrial arts, you don't see them pop up very often on applications and resumes anymore, just because it limits folks.
I didn't really think about it until Ms. Hartley spoke at the last meeting saying, about how much renovations would be needed and stuff. I just figured we got what, 2 or 3 stoves down there, and got cupboards, and go for it, but in the real world, they don't have to.
Yeah, well, Louis would have to obviously do a lot of work to kind of assess the space, look at all the equipment that's in there, make sure that it meets the new safety regulations. And then as Alex mentioned, we got to assess all the equipment.
Audience questions if the board doesn't have any.
Yeah, if there's any questions, absolutely.
Does the audience have any questions they would like to ask of Dr. McNaughton? Or any suggestions? Else?
I'm still gonna come back at you with the same thing I've been saying for 15, 20 years. I don't see a scenario in here with a special education director. Not an assistant, but a special education director. I feel like the special ed department has been dismantled over the years. You know, I'm not saying we're doing anything wrong. I'm saying I just think it could be better. This is my last opportunity to spout off that I just think there's a need. And we're vulnerable by having a superintendent and a shared director. We're very vulnerable. Every time they leave, we're starting all over again. Our special ed staff needs, and they're hungry for somebody working directly with them. Again, not saying that they need somebody, and it's not the way it used to be. And, you know, in the olden days, I can remember when we had a special ed director, the few that we had, they'd go into the super's office during budget times, and they'd come back and they'd be spouting, oh, he took this, he took that, and I got this back, and somebody needs, there needs to be two different people advocating. The special ed director and the superintendent, I believe they should be separate. I believe that the special ed director should be deeply involved in the budget process. You know, we advertised for a director years ago and it didn't happen. And if you go to the DOE site, they will tell you that they have very few and far between. But if we had been advertising over the past 20 years, maybe we'd have somebody. I'm speaking for where I sit. I'm like a hub and everything comes to me, and I know what people are hungry for, what they like to see come back again. I just really feel the need that a special ed director would be a good thing. And you advertise for it, you don't get it, well, you try, but you know, this somebody different every year. How do you build stability and continuity and make change and make things happen? If you go anywhere, they will tell you special education is not going anywhere. It is here to stay, it is growing. Children, the needs are growing. Advocacy is needed. You know, and I'm not complaining. I'm just feeling the need to just say it, and that's all. I just, you know, it would free up your superintendent to do curriculum and other things, but I suspect that there's no money there anymore for a special ed director. You know, there used to be, but so when you're looking at a home ec teacher and a social worker, it's all well and good, but
can I piggyback off that?
Alice, are you done? Or do you-
will I
didn't
ever
mean-
be?
I didn't mean that way.
She might go
Are
all
you
night.
finished speaking? I don't want to.
Oh, you're wonderful. No, thank you. I think I'm done. I'm just very passionate, that's all.
I can say for myself, I was even a little disappointed to find out that the assistant director wasn't even a full-time position. I
It
guess.
is a full-time position.
Well, but she's also gonna be doing other things, right?
No.
So she's not gonna be teaching?
No.
I misunderstood that. So
Yeah.
it is a full-time position and she'll be between the two. Okay, then I have a suggestion going. If we got the social worker scenario, is there any way that maybe we could fit like a 504 coordinator in there?
The 504 coordinator is going to be the new assistant special ed director.
That's gonna be entire, like, well, I'm enjoying this meeting immensely. Thank you very much.
Well, and then there's the concern, who's doing evaluations, you know, that, because if you're paying our contracted service provider to do evaluations, that is not monetarily, that's,
It's not sustainable over the long run, given the
That's-
cost. Absolutely,
and even he will tell you, we have someone on board to do it, and that's who should be doing it.
absolutely.
Can I ask you a question? Alice, what did you mean by vulnerable? Just clarify. When you say it leaves us vulnerable to not have
Well,
a
because when you
director.
go looking for a new superintendent, you have to find a superintendent that's willing to be a special ed director as well. And I don't know, I'm thinking they're probably not all wanting it.
Nope.
So, when your superintendent leaves, do you advertise for a superintendent and a special ed director? Or do you just pray that you're gonna get someone that's gonna do both? Because when they leave, we've lost both.
Who has the knowledge to do, and wants to do it, and wants to teach us, and wants to go through that stuff and really work with us.
I think that was Josh's plan. The end transition, this is the first step, that we really don't want to have the superintendent have all the hats. So I think this is the first step in his plan to get his fingers out of this. And so I think it's a process that's going to take some time, and I think it's going to happen overnight. We did have a shared special education director and it's like most of the stuff was being done elsewhere than not here. So that's the reason it all blew up. That was back, 10 years ago, 12 years ago. It must be pretty close. Rex nodding his head, so I think it was at the beginning when I first started. But that's when it all blew up. And it was when that person retired that we chose to have go our own route. And we had huge budget cuts we had to make, and that was some of the things that were cut. There's some things that I wish was back, like our adult had to do the HiSET or the old GED. That we gave that up. We don't have that anymore. So the closest place is Lincoln. K-Tech does it now through Lincoln. But I think that is the plan, and he's looking to delegate authority, more authority, and trust the staff to do what they're supposed to be doing. So,
Yeah, I made no bones about it when I accepted the position. That was one of my most significant concerns. Our special ed numbers are high enough that we warrant having a director. The needs of the students moving in of the community warrant that as well, so.
Josh, is our number still 30%?
Roughly, yeah.
That's huge.
Yeah.
Out of all our students, 30% are in a special ed.
And the important thing to keep in mind is, when we always look at budgets at ED 279, every child is created different. Every child has a different level of needs and services that we need to provide to them. And we have some students in this district that need a significant amount of services. And having this assistant director position, I think is step one. It's the right step, it's a good step in the right direction to be able to make some adjustments to these programs that we need to do.
Not doing things right can create a lot of big lawsuits. Something we have to be very careful.
I have a question. Are these 3 scenarios, again, this is our only choice of what we can do with the carryover money?
No, this was the discussion with the board asked me to weed out from.
From the ideas brought to the board at the board workshop. So has any other ideas been presented?
I think I presented one. We use the surplus to come in zero to the pay.
Yeah, you did
I
say
did,
that.
I brought that up, but we know what that cost would be. So if we're asking for 300,000 more from the town, we put 300,000, that 500 something. So we come to zero to the town. We're not asking for any more money from the town.
Correct.
And after we're talking about a shortfall that we're having, I think that further says that's probably what we should do. If we're worried about the 75,000 that we're not gonna have, that we're lacking, let's put it back towards the budget. That's my opinion. That's how I'll vote. I'll be voting for, to do that. I think we need to come into zero. I think we do need to have some surplus. We've been in the past where our past government took our money from us, 275,000 because of a landfill. And we had to go to the town and get money because we didn't have that surplus. But they talked about, we paid that all back. That's all been paid back. So now we're on the positive side. We're not on the negative side. It's good. I don't want that surplus to be zero. What if something happens here? Well, if the 100,000 doesn't cover you all, are we gonna freeze the schools, or are we gonna go into a deficit again?
Yeah, we should not be moving forward with a zero carry.
No,
That is not sound practice.
no.
Kevin, can you briefly explain the landfill piece?
For the town, the governor, past governor wanted to. They took over the landfill from the mills when the mills went bankrupt.
The town bid?
No, the state
The
did,
state, okay.
but they wanted us to pay for the upkeep and taking care of things. And so when we didn't agree to do that, so it would have been the police coverage, it would have been plowing the place, it would have been, there were some other things that happened.
So how does the school fit into that mix? Because
He penalized us because we wouldn't agree, the towns wouldn't agree. Wait, am I saying this right? Wouldn't agree to take on some of the costs instead of the state.
I think you have to be careful how you say it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And I'm not gonna
You
go
know
there.
me, I'm a little,
Because I don't feel as though that was a school issue. I mean, that was more of a town.
it was a town
It was a
issue.
town, I mean, I just think that's removed from the school. You know, yes, that's, the town could have many issues like that.
Yeah.
Because they're a town, but I don't think those impact the school.
But it did impact us because we lost 200 and whatever.
But the town chose to put
Fund
that
it.
burden on us, that was
Fund
the
it,
town.
but then it was paid back. We did, it came back. It wasn't, because we're not in the deficit now. If it never got paid back, we'd still be in the deficit. So I think we need to have, something could happen. You know, if we get 3 more kids born in kids piece, it's not budget, where's that money gonna come from? We need to have that money as a cushion in case something happens. We never expected that money to be withheld. But it was withheld. So, that's the way I remember it, but I'm getting old too, so.
I also remember our budget was also cut $250,000 we had to take out on top of.
So it's good to have a surplus. You know, I don't want to be in, you know, like, I ain't gonna say any towns, but one of the towns may have a $2 million surplus. Well, we're showing nothing. There's other towns that are showing nothing, so I wish we were in that boat, but we're not. We're kind of lean, but our budget is creeping back up. We were down about to 6.1 million, I think, at one point. For the amount of kids we have, and there's other budgets that were twice as much as us with the same amount of kids. So I think we have our lean ship. But I don't think we should be adding things on and drawing that down. I think it's got handcuffs.
So can I clarify your recommendation? Is that we utilize the carryover for potentially 75,000 anticipated revenue? And obviously, we've got these other pieces up here we've already discussed, and then the rest remains with carryover.
That's what I would do. I would recommend that we have some kind of nesting there. Like just, if it's a great year. And just think, look at our numbers now, Josh, if we wouldn't have got all the COVID money, where would we be?
Well, yeah, but I mean, we would have significant building
Yeah, we'd have,
significant building projects that we would be discussing loans.
and we're almost paying down 3 years, Louis, on the boilers, or 2, 3,
6.
or 6 years left,
No, 2026. I think.
2026, so 3 or 4 years.
3 more years
That'll be
after
paid
this.
for.
Right.
And do we want to go into debt again? I don't think it's a smart move, but
No, I mean, we would.
I'll live with whatever everyone votes for, but that's my recommendation, that we come in with zeros in the town. And if these things, you know, I could almost see that it could be a stipend position for that assistant principal, that they just take care of discipline and they still do their job, so they'll be the discipline person or something like that. And it's not gonna cost the full thing. That's what mine is.
I don't think that would work well to have a teacher doing discipline. I think I
Okay.
said that before. It would, it's two very different.
I think we've had a head teacher that took care of discipline before, haven't we?
Yeah.
I see
Doesn't
somebody
make it
nod
right,
that
though.
did it.
Yeah, but it's a little bit different because they step in when the administrator's not available.
That's right.
So if we have a situation that Beth's not available, when it comes to me, if I'm not available, we all work together throughout the 3 schools to be able to intervene. We call on that person as administrator not available. In this scenario, we're talking about somebody's gonna be working with the kids directly, very, very frequently on a daily basis for that support. So I do agree with Eric that it's kind of a conflict of interest. I think it would be difficult for students from having a staff with those 2 hats. I'm gonna discipline you, but now I'm gonna teach you math too, so.
We have to vote on how we're gonna spend the money.
We don't have to vote, but I do need a little bit of guidance. Because, so let me talk a little bit about the process. So our next step is Josh and I to sit down and build a full-out draft based on these decisions we make tonight. So we don't need a vote because you're still gonna have an opportunity for input. You're still gonna have an opportunity to vote on the budget. But I do need some direction of where the board would like to head with this money. So I know where to put it in the budget.
If we took Kevin's scenario, who's the assistant principal?
Let me just a second. Yeah, because if we left that original 377, paid 75 to cover the town, as far as the international program, we're gonna be at a carryover of $24,000 change, which is not comfortable. So if you think about the different options we provided, 177, 162, 182, 182, that 75 would essentially, for intent purposes of our discussion, replace one of these other 3 scenarios.
I got a question. What would happen if we do lock in oil and say it's after the budget's come through? Is that $100,000? Is that something that could happen? Probably not, because we've already passed the budget.
We've already passed the budget, that's correct.
I'm just talking to happen before July.
Yeah, unfortunately, the timing, I mean, it's a great thought, but the timing on it, it's not real feasible to do that.
But you said you can move that 376 then, right?
I think I can make some adjustments to the, I think we need to, no, we're gonna have to do a rewrite of our ESSER3 grant, so I think that might give us an opportunity to take some of them pieces and put them, possibly look at some grant money. And then I think I feel comfortable making a small adjustment to kids piece.
Of the 3 things, I'm most comfortable with the assistant principal, athletic director. But again, I don't want to. Well, you have, you can tell us what to do.
I mean. It's all.
I guess we have to do direction more. What we want to see.
When we rewrite the ESSER grant, is there any room in there that we could include some social work piece?
Yeah, we have money in there to hire people right now, we can't find them.
We just,
Yeah, because we're gonna be looking, to give you, don't quote me on this figure exactly, please, but we're gonna be looking at about 204,000, I think, dollars for a rewrite. But we have money for intervention services in there now, and we haven't had a single application for them.
Make a comment.
Yeah, please, Beth.
So that's why we no longer have that, we had that open contract through some of the agencies in the area.
Yeah.
But that's why those aren't being fulfilled because they don't have the staff that's filled their positions. So that's also why we haven't had anyone to, even the outside healthcare agencies are having a difficult time.
We couldn't hire someone like in-house, not use a contracted service, if we can hire a social worker in-house and give them a salary and.
I mean, if we were to create a position and had somebody with the right credentials, that's a possibility, yeah.
I mean, could that be written into the ESSER grant, I guess?
Yeah,
would be my
so
question,
here,
as
here,
opposed to contracting out services.
yeah, so here's a catch with that though. If we do that, based on the ESER, we would need to be prepared at the end of next school year. So when we're sitting here a year having a discussion on budget, we would need to be prepared to pull that back into the school budget because the grant will be ending. I know one of the things that we've done through the Pancras Valley Superintendent's groups, we're having a lot of conversations with each other right now about combining part-time positions at school departments and trying to make things more, I guess, more attractive for candidates. You know, there's a school department today that's looking for a part-time OT, and then so they sent it out. Anybody else need a part-time OT? Maybe we can create one full-time position, attracting additional candidates. So we're doing a lot of that right now because we're facing a shortage of staff, as everybody else is. I will say we've been fortunate with some of the folks we've had. Because there's other schools that have been all year with those speech providers, OT providers, PT providers.
I'm sorry, we are, you're right, we have some amazing speech and OT people, we are very fortunate compared to other schools. They're contracted and
The price of contract, the
that's.
services. is-
Yes, and the staff are, yeah, amazing.
Now, we have some contracts through Milwaukee Regional. Government.
Well, it's an open contract. Yeah, so what we had, community care is our primary for social worker services. Should they not be able to fulfill that, we reach out to Katahdin Valley Health Center.
And they can't fulfill it.
Correct. That's why I'm doing the work I presented earlier. I'm looking at this health clinic model to see if there's other agencies we can connect. I'm really putting out the feelers to say, all right, who else have we got? Can we contract? And I'm even at this point looking at organizations that are beyond the reaches of our state that could provide some type of level of telehealth.
I got a suggestion. We should excuse Lillian. This is really,
Jillian.
Jillian, sorry.
Jillian, if you would like to.
I call her Lillian all the time.
I mean, she doesn't make.
Well, yeah, but it's this way for me, Keith. Can you read mine? I can't. Can you read yours?
You know your own.
You don't have to sit up.
Yeah, yeah.
You don't.
Pressure.
No. If I was you, I would leave. I'll tell you that. Which I don't think we should even ask you to stay around. But it's up to you. If you want to stay.
If you want to leave, you're welcome to leave. Stay and enjoy the conversation.
Well, yes, it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Kevin, for thinking of
Well, I
that.
can tell you. We're comfortable with some of the discussion, so.
I am too. That's what I want to do.
I guess my question would be, do we want to come to the town, and ask for 350,000 more than we did last year?
No, we plan on coming into the town zero.
Okay,
That's what we want.
that's where I want to be.
That's what we want to do.
Okay.
And you know, the 75, I think it's a good idea, but I would like the opportunity to meet with the town to discuss that. I mean, we're meeting next week to look at that.
And I would ask the auditors what if it's 3%, if it's 5%, we're not at 3%, but 100 and something.
Well, so keep in mind, Kevin, right now, we can go up to 9%.
But what is recommended from the auditors for a?
Well, it doesn't, it's not auditor recommendation, it's state law. We went from 3 to 5.
But the auditors do recommend a certain amount. They always have with
Yes,
us.
yes, they have.
Yeah,
They always have
but
with
it's
us.
really gonna be based on that state law. So right now, we can do up to 9%. We don't have 9% here to work with. I think moving forward in the future, it would be very, very comfortable to build up to that 5%, keep it somewhere near 5%. I gotta remember that name.
Is there any like scenario, or is there any possibility, or like, I mean, I think an AP 80 is obviously would be very helpful, but is there anything that could be worked out or something so we could pay the town in like some type of modification, or give the AP duties to I don't know, just to kind of finagle things, or the AD?
So kind of combining Kevin's idea with scenario one, is that what the AP? and
Yeah, I don't
then-
even know if that's a possibility. I mean, I know right now Beth, with the principal's contract also includes some AD duties, is that correct?
She's stipend for those.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why we were actually able to keep it down to that price, because we're taking that money that we're going to be spending elsewhere, maybe I'm going to lie to this.
And we do know from the emails and the conversations that we've had with staff, that I believe all of us have got, that they really want to see an assistant principal and have their principal be able to do the duties that they're supposed to be doing, instead of doing discipline all the time. I guess you got some work to do, Mr. Deacon.
What direction am I headed in? I need a direction.
Were you not listening?
I've heard a lot of ideas, that's why I'm asking for some. Do
Next
you-
one with me is 0 to the 10, 0 actually to the 10.
Zero to the town, and do you
And if
want
you
me to?
can. if you
I
can
would
do
still like to
the-
work in the APAD.
Yep.
With
So,
0 to the.
Okay, 0 to the town and build out
And still
a
keep,
draft with the APAD.
still keep us with the index needed fund.
I think that we still need to, we just can't arbitrarily take,
My position is I just haven't heard enough ideas. These were ideas that were given to us at a budget workshop. I asked for more ideas. I asked for looking at the gaps. Where do we have a need for our students? And this is all that we were given, and we weren't given anything else. And I do want to hear more ideas. I want to make sure we're answering to the kids and what they need. So that's where I stand. I can't move forward with any of these because these were ideas brought to us. We haven't heard anything else.
Beth?
May I speak?
Yes.
The assistant principal and athletic director piece, when it comes down to day-to-day working of the school department, is for the students. Because the principal can then do the principal's duties of supporting staff, students, curriculum, looking for gaps, working with RTI interventions. And the assistant principal can then take over other aspects such as student discipline, and then with the athletic director piece, scheduling, attending meetings, attending all home games throughout the school year, conferences, that kind of thing that falls into the athletic director piece, and also help support staff when they are able. But right now, you have one person wearing multiple hats. I am the principal of the middle school. I am the principal of the high school. I am the assistant principal of the middle school. I am the assistant principal of the high school, and I am the athletic director at the high school level. That's asking a lot, and it does not serve our staff or our students well to only have one person trying to cover that many positions.
No, I was, and you can correct me, Kevin, okay? I was taught when we came to the table with a budget, all right? When I came on as a board member, that Louis had a list, Mr. McGibbon would have a list, Mrs. Hartley would have a list of things that they wanted or what they needed. Each department came up with their own budget. Each teacher came up with their own budget. Even the librarians would come up with a budget. And everything was looked at and discussed individually. I'm assuming that's the way it is done. So when I hear you say, Erica, that you don't have enough information, that you don't see a wish list or what the kids need, it's already in there. the way I look at the budget. Everybody has already contributed to what we have for a budget in front of us. All of the staff has already put in there what they need for their materials.
So I can address how this was created. What I've done is asked with each of the department chairs and the administrators to work with their staff to bring forward a list of their items of concern. Okay, from those list of items of concern is what we presented and discussed at the last meeting. So that is that feedback from the staff. And then from that meeting, there were some ideas that kind of panned out. Scenario 3 was an idea that was brought up by the board. Scenario 2 was mentioned and noted during the board meeting. And scenario 1 was brought forth from staff feedback directly.
And one thing we have to remember, we have a time crunch. That we have to bring this to the voters, and that's June, whatever the date is. We have to bring it to the town, and then we have to vote on our budget, because our budget runs out July 1st.
Yeah, if I can get some directive, what Josh and I can work for our next board meeting to have an additional workshop with a completed, kind of built out draft, if you will, for the school board to discuss and potentially approve. And after that, we obviously do our town bit presentation to them. And then once they approve the budget, the draft, it goes forward to the voters. I would prefer to be at that point, if we could do it possibly for next week, to do excuse me, the week after next. For our next meeting. All right.
Is what I'm hearing from the majority of the board. 0 to the town. Assistant principal, assistant athletic director.
I would agree with that.
Erica,
I don't know. All right.
Michelle,
I definitely want to give 0 to the town. And I'd like to see what the scenario would look like with the AP,
that's what we're asking for. Yes. Kevin,
I think that's what I want, but I'd like to see that we have an undesignated balance, so that we're not down to 4,000.
No, we have this meeting carry, absolutely. Yeah, I'm not gonna bring something to present that doesn't have carry. Because it's not a business.
4 agree with the scenario.
All right, I will work on that for our next meeting.
Thank you. Upcoming meetings. May 17th and May 31st. Motion to adjourn,
I vote for you too.
second, all in favor?